Welcome to the RecWired's first LinkedIn Live of the new year. Happy New Year to everyone. And great first guest for us today, telling us we're 9 days into the year officially, working days. Welcome, Steve. How you doing?
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Good. No problems. How's the year started for you?
Good start to the year. Busy start to the year. It feels a lot longer than the 16th of January. It feels like we've already been back about 3 or 4 weeks. But I keep telling myself, like we said before we came on, that we're only actually this is the 9th working day essentially of the year. So, but it's been a busy start. Back out training already last week. Lots of new inquiries as well. So it's looking really positive, much more positive than the start of 2024.
Okay, good to hear. So, welcome to people joining us. For those who don't know you, Steve, tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, of course, no problem. So, hi everyone, my name's Steve. So, I'm representing Seventh Wave today. So, I kind of head up the training operations for Seventh Wave. So, we're a people training company. We specialize in leadership training. So in terms of our link to RecWired, we work with lots of the RecWired members, supporting them with either their leadership development or team development. So our flagship product and the product that we do with lots of our RecWired customers is called the Wave program. And basically, where we come in is we know from our research that most people are promoted into leadership roles because they're good at their job, not necessarily because they've got the skill set to be able to. What we found in recruitment, especially, what that looks like is you have someone who's brilliant at billing, they're one of our top billers. And because of that, we decided let's give them a team of people to look after. And we've not actually given them the skill set to be able to do that. So give them this team of people and they're trying to manage maintaining that great level of billing whilst at the same time teaching other people to do it as well. So our program is 6 workshops. We deliver one workshop every month for 6 months, each one building on the previous one, hopefully giving you the skill set to be able to go and lead a team effectively. So we're called Seventh Wave because apparently if you go to the beach and you watch the waves, the Seventh Wave is the one that brings everything to shore. So that's the biggest one. So we kind of see people who've been on the program with the Seventh Wave back into their business with this enhanced leadership skill set and ability to lead a team. So all of us that work with Seventh have got a background in senior leadership. So my background is generally in customer facing environments like leadership and hospitality. Businesses that you've heard of, big businesses that everyone might have heard of, businesses like Tesco or the Arcadia Group. And most recently, I run a region that had 20 managers that reported into me. One of the prerequisites of anyone that delivers Seventh Wave content, we've had a background of at least 10 years in leadership roles ourselves, so we can kind of bring it to life and have stories of when we've got it right, lots of stories of when we've got it wrong as well.
Do you think that makes a difference? Because sometimes you get leadership training and people have never done it. They know the concept, they know the theory, but do you think it really sort of stands out, makes you stand out?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very much our facilitation style is that we introduce a model, we introduce a leadership model, but we like to bring that to life in someone's real life role. So how do you actually take this and go and make an impact in your day to day? And we're able to bring examples of that when we've done that in our previous roles as well. And like I say, lots of examples of when we've got it right, but the ones that actually have the most impact are sometimes the ones where we've been in those leadership roles ourselves and got it wrong.
So I don't know if it's you or me, but we've got a couple of comments on LinkedIn just saying that we've got some background noise for one of us that's a little loud. So there's quite an echo on the sound. So I'm not sure if that's me or I don't know Beth, is that me or is that Steve? Hopefully get an answer in a second.
Yeah, no problems. That's fine. I don't know what it is that I could have echoing in the background, but
no, I think my well, hopefully it's not mine, but I'll go a bit close to the microphone and turn down my sound a little bit. So see if that makes a difference.
I shall do the same.
So we'll see. So the first topic we're going to do, and hopefully the comments will come back and say that people. Beth's saying, I think Steve. There we go. So I'm off the hook. So if there's anything echoey to change, you're coming through to me, all right? So
Yeah.
Okay, let's
just turn that down. So let's see how that goes.
Okay, cool. So our first point is going to be around, what it takes to lead, to lead that team. So, building everyone, I think coming back in 25, if you're running a business, it's going to say, how do, I want to be building good leadership teams around. So where do you even start with that?
Good question. I mean, in terms of the time taken to do that, we could probably sit and talk about that for a week in terms of how to do that. I've thought what might be useful is, because it's January and it's that kind of time of year where we're thinking about what do we do with our teams, how do we take our teams forward, might be useful to break it down into some practical things that leaders can go and do and think about and ask questions with their leadership teams to start to kind of make decisions to enable them to do that. So I think a really nice starting point at this time of year is to think about, if you get everyone in your leadership team to write down what your purpose is as an organization. So write down what is our purpose and get everybody to write that down individually. If everybody writes exactly the same thing, then tick, you're on the right lines. If not, then you need to do a little bit of work around that. So most organizations that we work with, you tend to find that, especially in recruitment, we see this a lot. Most recruiters are brilliant at the kind of capability and behavior level. So they're great at training someone how to be a good recruiter. So the skills of being a great recruiter and then the behaviors that go alongside that. And then normally what we expect to see is there is a change in the environment. So we deliver X results. We have these processes in place. We remote work. We come to work 3 days a week, whatever it is. So those skills and capabilities that we give them have an impact on the environment. The best organizations that we work with are the ones that come in at a higher level. So they have a really clear purpose that everybody is engaged and mobilized behind. So everyone understands that purpose. Once everyone understands that purpose and we've got that clear in our mind, that then allows you to define what are the values and beliefs that we have as a team. And from that, you can then identify what is the identity of the types of people that we want to work in this organization. So I can train someone to be a great recruiter, but if their values and beliefs aren't aligned with those of the business, then we're probably going to have problems further down the line. So a real common one that you quite often see is we'll train someone to be a great recruiter. We've given them the capabilities and the behaviors, but actually our values and beliefs are about, do you know what, we graft and we work really hard. And if we need to be in the office till 7 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night to close a deal, then that's what we're going to do. If that person's values and beliefs are about, I want to go and do Pilates at 5 o'clock at night, then we can train them to be a great recruiter, but we're not going to train them to have the values and beliefs that we've got as an organization. Likewise, there will be businesses that are more aligned with kind of that work-life balance, and you identify people that align with that. So first kind of stage is define your purpose. That then drives out your values and beliefs. That helps you then to identify the types of people that you want working in your organization. You can then train them to be a great recruiter, but if they're aligned with the values and beliefs, it's much easier.
Do you find getting people that have that somewhat, you lose something though in terms of sort of diversity of thought, and everyone gets into the sort of group thing? How do you sort of balance that? You know what, we want everyone to sort of be aligned, but also as well, we just don't want we don't want to just be able to hire one type of person into leadership.
Yeah, great question, and it's almost separating out the two. So your values and beliefs is one thing. The way that you operate within that team and your skills and your strengths and weaknesses is something different. So we often define there's 9 roles that you need to have an effective team. And if I kind of break that down simply, it breaks down into 3 things. So you're going to want people on your team that are good at thinking. So whether that's coming up with good ideas, or they're a specialist in a certain subject and they've got a lot of knowledge in that subject, or they're strategic in the way that they think and they can think about what does success look like and how are we going to get there. So you've got those 3 roles. You've then got people that you need to be able to bring the team together. So someone who's great at kind of bringing energy and bringing the whole team together. You need someone that's able to spin all the plates, and you need someone that's able to implement the ideas. And then you've got the more kind of thinking, task-based role. So these are the people that just get stuff done. So yeah, I can see your ideas. Those are great ideas. I know how to put that into practice and get it done. So there's kind of 9 roles that you need to have within your team, each of which has different strengths and weaknesses. And once you've identified what the strengths and weaknesses are of those team members, you can then make sure that the task that they are doing within the business is aligned to their strengths and weaknesses.
So typically you go about building this team. How do you know when you're there?
So there's lots of different ways you can measure it, and I think for me, I probably in 20 years in leadership can pinpoint 2 occasions where I sat back and went, "Yeah, I've made it." So the best leaders aren't always the ones that have got it and they've made it and they're there. The best leaders are the ones that are leading in a way that is representative of the situation that they're in. So for some, if you've had a lot of kind of turnover in you're forming a new team, the way you lead that team is going to be very different from a team that's quite established. And it's just your ability to be able to identify what that is. But yeah, in my whole career, I probably would say twice I was at a stage where I really thought, yeah, do you know what? I've nailed this and everything's working the way it should.
Well, it's good. Most people never get to one of those, but
Yeah,
I think teams I've worked in and teams I've managed, I think it's rare that you ever
yeah,
get there,
yeah,
or close even sometimes.
yeah, absolutely. The best leaders are the ones that know where their team is at and they lead in that way.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
I'm quite hands off in terms of how I lead my team, but I've got a lot of new members of my team, or we've changed strategy, or we've got new goals and new things that we need to focus on. If I'm kind of delegating all those tasks out, then I'm probably not going to get the right kind of result.
How do you deal, Stephen? Sorry for some of these quite tough questions,
All right.
but I think you've not been phased yet. So, how do you deal with people who don't align to the values and beliefs?
Yeah, that's a good question, because normally
And
when you do the
you'll be
first,
training, and you'll see people who are outliers, I guess. You see people
yeah,
who are not tuned in, who are so far
yeah,
off everyone else. How do you go about that?
yeah. And I think the important thing to mention is when you do that exercise around what your purpose is and your kind of values and beliefs, if you then relate that to your current team, you will find that there are individuals in your team that don't align to that. So generally, that leads to a difficult conversation, because we need to make sure that that person kind of is aware that they might not be aligned with those values and beliefs. So there's ways that you can do that. So a framework that I always think about is, for those of you that are listening that like reading up on leadership, there's a book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott. She's like a Silicon Valley kind of CEO. She's worked at Apple, Google, all those kind of businesses. And one of the things that really sticks with me in terms of how she frames those conversations is about, number one, you've got to challenge directly, but secondly, you've got to care personally. So there is a way of helping someone to understand that their values and beliefs might not be aligned with your organization, and that they might be better off in a different role, without being an arse about it. You can do that in a caring way and help them to do that. So it's about being honest. So challenging directly, you've got to have that conversation, but you can care personally at the same time. So in lots of roles now, and Gen Z, I'm sure, will come into our conversation at some point. The average tenure that people have in roles now is less than 2 years. And I know traditionally, so like me and you going into business, quite often the goals that we would talk about in a performance review or anything like that would all be to do with the business and about how do we move the business forward? Where do you see yourself in 12 months within this business? Actually, now it's a bit more two-way, because in 2 years, that person might not be working for you. So it's how do you have those conversations that align with the business goals? So how do we, how can you help me achieve what we need to achieve as a business? But equally, how can I help you get to where you want to be in 2 years, in 5 years? Because that might not be here. Ultimately, you have those conversations because hopefully that makes them want to stay.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way of looking at it. And I think one of the things that I try and explain, especially to business leaders, no one cares about your business as much as you do.
Yeah.
You know, they might be great, they might work hard, they might, but still they're never going to care about it as much as you. So the bit that they, for the majority are interested in is how that impacts themselves. So yeah, it's spot on to actually look at how's it impacting the individual, and hopefully that sort of fits into the nice Venn diagram of how that impacts positively onto your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And people trust differently now. So again, you go back not that long ago. So you go back 20 years. When we entered into the world of work, we generally very quickly trusted our line manager that they had our best interests at heart. And we normally could be confident that we would be working in that business for quite a sustained amount of time. Now it's much more difficult to build trust with members of your team in the society that we now live in. So when we started work and we went into our roles, the only person we could learn off generally was our line manager. If we wanted to learn how to be a good leader or be a good team member, we generally learned that from the person that was leading us. People that come into work now have access to so much information. They've got access to as much information as us. They've not got access to as much experience, but they've got access to as much information. And that means it's much harder to build trust with your team now than it was 20, 30 years ago. You have to work much harder to gain trust of people coming into roles now. And it's much more two-way. So it's not just about how are you going to help me achieve my goals in the organization. It's about how can you help me achieve my goals as well.
Yeah, so we're sort of bleeding into our second topic here, which is navigating leadership change. So it's a really interesting concept of people trust differently. It's a really well put as well. So I guess what have you seen work well in terms of people winning that trust, and where have you seen that work well?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing with change is change is happening quickly now, and it's only getting quicker and quicker. So I read something recently that said, so if you're 40 years old now, the rate at which you experience 12 months of change, by the time you are 60, that rate of change will happen in 3 months. So in 20 years, if you're 40 now, by the time you're 60, change is going to happen 4 times faster. If you're 10 years old now, the rate at which you experience 12 months of change now, by the time you're 60, that 12 months of change will happen in 11 days. So the first thing that I always talk about when we talk about change with leaders is your ability to be able to lean into change. Because if you've not got an ability to lead into change, you're going to fall further and further behind quicker and quicker, because the rate of change is so fast. So that's the kind of the first bit on change. In terms of the question that you asked about building trust, the quickest and easiest way to start building trust in your team is your ability to be vulnerable as a leader. So your ability to be able to go, do you know what, Andy? I really admire that in you. I wish I could be as good at doing that task as you are. Being able to go, I messed up. I got that wrong. I probably should have asked you to do that in a different way. Your ability to be human as well, and to be able to have conversations about things that are going on outside work or those kind of things. And some people don't find that very easy to do. So, but absolutely, in terms of trust, your best way of building trust is that ability to be able to be vulnerable, but to show an interest in other people and their lives and what they've got going on as well. So this generation that are coming into work now, especially, place much more value in the outside of work bit and societal impact and environmental impact and all of those things than any of the generations that have come before.
With the rise in technology as well, how do you see that impacting people's leadership? As you say, materials out there, but do you see artificial intelligence, working out how to manage people better, and automation of tasks, and how's technology going to improve leadership in the coming years?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, we kind of hope it doesn't much, because otherwise we're not going to be out supporting people developing their leaders. But yeah, we see technology as a tool to support that. So we do soft skills, or human skills, as I like to call it. And I like to think that those human skills are always going to be important. A lot of the theory that we use is based on kind of 200 years of research. And fundamentally, human behavior has not changed that much. The environment around us and things that go on around us changes, but the way that we interact as humans has not changed that much. And I think we've kind of seen the trend of that, haven't we, with what's happened with COVID? So we went almost exclusively remote back in 2020, and I think that we've seen over the course of time, in the course of the last 4 or 5 years, that businesses have gone back to kind of a more hybrid approach, or in lots of circumstances they've gone back to being fully in the office, because that human interaction and that need to interact with other humans and be collaborative and generate ideas is always going to be there. But I think where technology changes in terms of leadership is, hopefully it makes us much more efficient. I think of the processes that I used to have back when I was working just 20 years ago, and you look at some of the processes that we used then, and you can't believe we ever managed to function using such inefficient process. So we see it as a tool that can kind of enhance someone's leadership skill set. But you can have all the technology in the world and AI in the world, in terms of having a good, difficult conversation. I'm interested to see how that evolves and how we manage to find something that enables AI or something to have a great, difficult conversation with someone. Oh, I've lost your sound, Andy.
AI won't be able to walk you around the car park.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I get that. So in terms of, coming on to our sort of final topic, it sounds like it's all about sort of links into communication and good communication. A lot of the times, I think back to managers and leaders I've worked for. They're always great communicators. You're always really clear, and they always made you feel like they were talking just to you and really sort of got you? So is that something you see in the work you do?
Yeah, it's communication is probably the most popular topic that we talk about within any of our workshops. So it's actually the main topic of the first workshop that we do as part of our program is, first of all, understanding yourself, how you like to communicate, and then once you understand that, how you use that to communicate with other people as well. So the best communicators and the best leaders are the people that are able to communicate with someone in the way that they would like to be communicated to. So put most simply, so we use insights discovery in our program, and that kind of categorizes communication into 4 distinct categories. And generally, as humans, we have one that we are more aligned to than others. So, for example, quite often in a CEO or a founder or someone in a senior leadership position, we might describe them as being fiery red. So, someone that is quite demanding, they're driven, ambitious, and all those things. And we would talk about those kind of people as, if you're communicating to someone like that, be bright, be brief, be gone. So, be straight to the point, direct. The opposite of them is what someone that we might call earth green. So someone that's quite caring and empathetic, a bit more introverted, calmer. They're the ones that might not talk first in a meeting. And actually, those people, in terms of how we communicate to them, we want to show them that we care, and we want to make sure that we give them time to make decisions. Quite often you will see where those opposites are is there ends up being conflict. So someone who's quite demanding and driven wants an answer straight away, and someone that's earth green actually wants a little bit more time, and they want to be able to think it through before they give an answer. The other 2 opposites that we have is we have someone that we might describe as cool blue, so quite introverted like the earth green, but they're kind of data driven. They like analyzing spreadsheets. They're analytical. They think things through. They think about how do we deliver this process from A to B. So very detailed. And on the opposite to them, we have someone we might describe as sunshine yellow. So someone who's quite extroverted. They like being in a group. They like being the center of attention. They like to be involved in things. So a cool blue, in terms of how we communicate with them, they like lots of detail. So they like to have an email with all of the things that we've talked about. They like to be able to analyze the spreadsheets. Someone who's sunshine yellow might want to be talked to face. And if you send them a long email, they might not read it. So it's about identifying, first of all, how you like to be communicated to, and then in your team thinking about how do they like to be communicated to.
Where would I score on that, would you say?
Oh, interesting. Where do you think you would be?
I've done a similar thing, but it was the earth, air, water, fire. I forget what it's, tetramat. And I scored somewhere between earth and air, that sort of certainty, but also analytical. So I was probably earth, air on that. So I don't know where that would score on your color chart.
Yeah, so it's a really good question, actually, a good point, because as much as you kind of have a tendency to use one, you're made up of all 4, and your ability to use all 4 can really influence how you communicate. So, for example, again, go back to fiery red CEO. So think extreme version of red energy might be someone like Donald Trump, we might describe as being fiery red energy. We've all had one of those kind of bosses, and then one day they come into the office and they ask us how we are. So they show a bit of caring and empathy, and it seems a little bit weird, doesn't it? It seems weird that they would do that. Equally, we've all got someone in our network and in our teams that we describe as caring and empathetic, and then one day they completely lose it. So we can use all 4, but sometimes when we use it, depending on how we are at using that, it might seem a bit weird or inappropriate.
It's a really good exercise. My partner's recently gone through the exercise with you guys, and it was quite interesting what she said around all of the team, and I know the team as well, and it's quite interesting when they did that exercise to sort of hear the sort of feedback on it. And I don't think anyone was too shocked actually, but it made a very good way of, I think the way it was sort of explained to me was that it just made it sort of when communicating, think of this, think of how you want to land your message to get the best result, basically.
Yeah. The example that I quite often use is you notice it more when you get it wrong with someone. So if you think of using that fiery red energy with someone where you're really demanding towards them, and you can feel that person withdrawing and feeling more under pressure, then you're probably not getting the communication style right. So someone who's fiery red, and I can think of loads of examples when I was a manager of when I dialed up my red energy, and I would want to know an answer to something straight away, and they wouldn't be able to answer it straight away because they need some time to think it through. And I'd be getting frustrated because they're not answering me, and they'd be getting frustrated because they felt under pressure to make a quick decision and they need to talk it through. So yeah, it's good within your team for identifying people that you kind of struggle to communicate with. It's also good for where you've got people in the team that might be a similar communication style to you, because that can also cause conflict. So if you put a bunch of sunshine yellow people in a room, they might not actually physically get anything done because they'd be too busy talking about anything other than the task that they're supposed to be doing. Put a load of cool blues in a room and they might not actually ever make a decision because they're so busy analysing the detail, they don't actually get to make any decisions on it. So it's interesting from an kind of departmental perspective and within your teams. But we also see it in your industry with how you talk to clients and customers as well. So being able to pick up on what is their communication preference, how do they like to be communicated to? Do they like detail? Do they want me to ask them how the weekend was and they want a little bit of a conversation first? Or do they just want me to get on the phone, tell them what's going on, and then get off the phone?
I definitely get that. It's a really good way of looking at it as well, because I mean, sales is obviously as much about listening as talking. Yeah. For anyone that's watching this, if you do want to ask Steve or indeed myself a question, just type it in the comments, and we'll try and answer those as we go. So, nice. I think. What would be your top tips? I mean, everyone is, let's just, bound with enthusiasm. It's 2025. People have come back in, day whatever working. If it's starting to wane right now, or someone's, what are the things that people can be doing right now with their leadership, with their teams, building that energy, and to keep it sustainable for the year?
Yeah, it's proper weird this time of year, isn't it? So this is the one time of year where pretty much everyone has had a collective reflection period. So everyone's kind of gone away, taken some time away, and everyone sat and reflected. And generally speaking, people come back into it energized and having a kind of a clear thought in their mind of what they want to achieve. What normally happens then is we've only thought about our own goals and what we want to achieve, and then we combine that with everyone else doing the same thing, and we get a week and a half in and think, oh my god, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. I've failed at all those New Year's resolutions already. So a couple of tips that I always say to teams that I speak to at this time of year is, first of all, remember where we're at. So we're literally 9 days in to kind of the working year. So we're not going to change the world in that amount of time. A really useful book for this time of year is one called Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a really popular one, and it's a really good one to look at this time of year for when people are all striving to achieve something or working on the goals. And basically what he talks about in the book is that we should focus on our systems rather than our goals. So everybody has the same goal. So winners and losers all have the same goals. a goal is just a momentary change, and if we're always just focusing on the goals, then there's always going to be a time when we get there and think, oh God, what next? So it's about focusing on systems at this time of year rather than goals. The gym analogy is always a good one at this time of year, and I know we were just talking about it then. So quite often people come back to work feeling gross after eating loads at Christmas and go, I'm going to lose 3 stone. And then at the end of the first 2 weeks, when they've lost a pound or something like that, they think, oh, for God's sake, I'm going to give up. And it's because they're focused on that goal of 3 stone rather than the systems in order to get there. So if you think more about systems rather than goals, so a system of losing 3 stone might be, I am a healthy person, I'm going to eat healthily. And telling yourself that rather than focusing on the goal. So focus on systems rather than the goals. And the other part of that is that it's the tiny changes that compound to making a big difference. So think about what are the small things that you can start to do now that eventually will lead to the big change further down the line. Okay. So if I decide that I'm going to focus on my personal development this year and I want to educate myself on how to be a good leader, I'm not going to change the world by reading 10 pages of a book, but the compound effect of doing that over a sustained amount of time is huge. So it's suggested in that book that if you are 1% better at something every day, 1% better at something every day, by the end of the year, you will be 38 times better at that task. We generally fail on our goals at this time of year because we expect it to change very quickly. We also expect change to be linear. So we expect that it's going to go like that. So we take an action, we put something in place, and there'll be an outcome, and that will continue, and it'll go like that. Change goes more like that. So it's more like it's a flat line, and then all of a sudden, the compound effect of all those small changes has a big change. So I think
sort of get that, because it's the same with physical exercise. It's probably the same with LinkedIn posting. So, it's the same about sales calls and outreach. It's that, as you say, it's that constant discipline and having a system in place that's going to make a huge difference. And I think the thing goes, when I think about leadership teams, it's that consistency. It's the, we're going to do our thing. We agree to meet, we meet, we have standards there, and they just don't last for one meeting. They last for the year, and everyone supports those standards.
Yeah, absolutely. And because I work with a lot of recruitment businesses, I will often ask in the kind of training environment that we're operating in, who is your best member of the team? Who's the best biller that works here? And without fail, every single person that comes back, when I ask them to describe what it is about that person that makes them the best, the word that always comes back is consistency. They're consistent in their behaviors and how they do it. So it's not about this time of year thinking I'm going to change the world really quickly. It's what are the small changes that I can start to make that will have a compound effect later on, and focusing on the systems rather than the goals. So what are the systems that I need to have in place that will allow me to achieve that goal?
So basically what you're saying is, if you were to hire Seventh Wave right now, it's a brilliant time to do it. And, you'll have, you get systems in place for great leadership teams for the coming year.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a brilliant time. And I always talk about, because everyone's talking about what success looks like for them in the year. And it's a really nice start to the year.
I think it's a brilliant time to invest as well. The best time, I think, to invest is always now. Well, it was probably a year ago, but it's now. And I think both in terms of investing in your leadership, so you're getting the value out of them for the whole of the year, investing in your marketing, so your brand's there. So I think there's this theme around. I think it's been a tough year for a lot of firms, tough 2 years for a lot of firms. And I just get the feeling now that we're coming out of what I call survival mode, and firms should be investing in their people and their processes and their brand and everything now to get those returns. I think the companies that can see the sort of, can see the upside of where we're going, will do that. And I think those who are investing last year are best placed this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk to lots of people, obviously, about why you would invest in kind of developing your people. And then I think, first of all, we talked a lot about the new generation of people coming through work. And we know that one of the criteria that they look at in terms of joining a business is what's in it for me in terms of my personal development. What am I getting out of it? And I think the second thing that we always talk about is the amount of time taken up in not dealing with some of these things. So the amount of time that it takes dealing with when there's been an issue with communication, dealing with someone that we've recruited that's not aligned with our values and beliefs, having difficult conversations with people, or most importantly, the impact of not having difficult conversations with people and the time and cost implication of that can be huge. So yeah, absolutely, it's a really good time to be thinking about it. But then obviously, I would say that.
Yeah, of course you'd say that. So, right. Well, I think we need to do this again in a quarter's time and see what results we're getting. No questions, so you must have answered everything perfectly. So well done.
Thanks for being kind, everyone.
Yeah, and good to see you again. And
You too.
we'll do this soon. Take care, Steve.
Sounds good. Take care.